Customer Success Convos. Join the biggest names in customer success for a video series that brings together leaders within the field to discuss the latest trends, innovative insights, and most effective strategies within customer success right now. Hosted by Vish Walia. Whether you're new to customer success or a seasoned professional, Vish and his guests will leave you with actionable advice, takeaways, and top tips to enhance your customer experiences.
Daniel, to begin with, give us a brief introduction about yourself and what you do at Parameter 81.
Yeah, hi Vish. I hope you can hear me. I'm Daniel Goldfeld, as you mentioned. I'm based out of Tel Aviv, where the headquarters of Parameter 81 is based. 33 years old, and I'm the Global Vice President of Customer Success at Parameter 81 for the last 2 years or so. Before that, I was the Director of Customer Success at another Israeli startup called Logs.io, and basically managing the entire EMEA region for pre-sale and post-sale. And before that, I have a vast background in product management and integration, so I'm coming from more of a technical background rather than sales one.
Perfect. Awesome. So Daniel, I know we had a previous conversation, and in that conversation, you talked about two key initiatives that you're focusing on. One is the optimization of pre-sales and post-sales operations, and then second, bridging the relationship gap. Would you tell our audience that what are you working on those projects, and what were the outcomes that you achieved in that?
Yeah. So Parameter 81 is a young startup with very aggressive KPIs, especially on the sales front and the ARR. And one of the main challenges that we were facing was the fact that because we had to meet those different KPIs, we got to a point where there was a bit of a gap between what was offered and promised to opportunities and what they actually got after they purchased the solution. And this gap was generated both because of the aggressive KPIs, but also because we've actually had two different teams that were managing the pre-sale and the post-sale cycles, right? We had the sales engineers and the sales executives that were running the sale and finalizing the deal. And once the opportunities were won and the customers closed, basically the entire relationship was moved to the post-sale team, which was the account management alongside with a technical resource that was assisting them. And what we saw is that because of this misalignment of expectations sometimes, there was a gap between what the customer was expecting to get and what the post-sale team was then able to deliver. And we also saw that there was a gap in actually building the relationship itself, because while those customers were engaged during the pre-sale cycle, because there was a conversation, there was a POC, once they've signed the deal, the honeymoon period was over. And we found ourselves chasing those different customers and users to actually onboard them to the platform. Which basically resulted in a low adoption of the platform and higher churn. And we started thinking in Parameter 81, how can we address this? How can we basically align expectations? How we can reduce the churn? How can we basically deliver more value and more expansion as we're a land and expand company? And one of the things, and this is to answer your question, one of the things that we've identified is the fact that we want to have the same person, or at least one person, present in the pre-sale and the post-sale cycle. Basically, somebody who's taken the relationship from the honeymoon period, from pre-sale into the post-sale. This person knows what the customer was expecting to get. He knows what their business goals are, what their pain points are, and also already owns the relationship because it started at the beginning of the conversation. And this is what brought us to combine the pre-sale and post-sale roles, the technical roles, and basically the customer success engineers at Parameter 81 are now doing both pre-sale and post-sale. So they're doing the pre-sale engineering, the POC, and they're in charge of the technical win, so the POC. But they're also, once the customers decide to purchase the solution, they're also now in charge of the onboarding, implementation, and training of the existing customer, preserving the relationship, sort of phasing in and phasing out of the account manager and the sales executive, as well as sort of building an analogy of a team that is working with the customer. So sort of a co-pilot approach.
Perfect. Daniel, in our previous conversation, you talked about that you focused on two key initiatives. One is the optimization of pre and post sales operation, and second one, bridging the relation gap. Can you please tell our viewers that what projects you're working on and what were the outcomes that you achieved from that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So when I joined Pyramid 81, we were a small startup, and as a small startup, we had very aggressive goals and KPIs, which brought our sales team to a point where they need to sell as much as possible, and basically, in order to reach those different objectives that they had. However, it also created a bit of misalignment in expectations between the customer and what we could have offered. And because we were working in a traditional approach where we had the pre-sale team, which was combined out of a sales representative and a technical resource, and a post-sale team, which was combined out of an account manager and a technical resource, we got to a point where we were struggling with a high churn rate because of misalignment and mismatch and misfit of what we had to offer, as well as getting to a point where we had a lot of work to do in regards to chasing the relationship, rebuilding the trust, and just being able to talk to those customers because we had to build a relationship from scratch. And one of the main projects that I took upon myself is to see how we can improve this and reduce the churn and basically generate value for the existing customers. And I think one of the things that we've identified is the fact that there's a lot of different roles that are interacting with the customer in different life phases or life cycles within the company, pre-sale and post-sale.
Okay.
However, there is no familiar face that is actually working with the customer alongside the entire cycle. Yeah. And this is where it actually hit me that we do want to have at least one person, hopefully the technical lead, that will actually be the familiar face in the account, pre-sale and post-sale. The reason for that is because this person will have the ability to understand and know what were the expectations at the beginning of the sale. He knows what are the pain points that we were discussing. He understands what are the technical needs and the business goals that the customer has. And by moving with him from the pre-sale to the post-sale cycle and also being in charge not only for winning the POC, but also doing the onboarding, implementation, and training, there is a much better relationship, a much better expectation setting between the company and its customers, as well as a better engagement that is created with those customers. And because, again, they have a familiar face, they have somebody they trust, and they have somebody who knows exactly what was promised even before they signed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just basically, it allowed us also to do something that we weren't expecting at the beginning, but actually phasing in and phasing out different roles. Because once you have somebody who's in the relationship from the beginning to the end, you have the ability to actually change and phase out and phase in the different stakeholders within the company and still keep the relationship. So even if on the pre-sale, we had the sales executives who were finalizing the deal and then moving on, and we were phasing them out, and then we were phasing in the account manager, by having the customer success engineer go alongside with the same account, with the same people that decided to purchase the product and are now in charge of onboarding it, we've preserved the relationship and basically continued this honeymoon period that we had with the customer before they signed to the adoption and onboarding and the ongoing relationship that we were having with them after they actually purchased and signed the contract and paid.
Perfect. I know we talked about this pilot and co-pilot analogy. Can you briefly talk about what it means and the benefit of that?
Yeah, this was actually a big challenge for us to actually change a little bit the perspective of the sales team, because usually sales are lone wolves, as you probably know, right? They do the sale, they run the sale, they move on. And because we started building a team, because there's a customer success engineer and a salesperson involved, we needed to build a process and something that can work. And we've came up with the pilot and co-pilot analogy,
Okay.
where we're actually talking about the fact that while the salesperson is still leading the sale, he's the pilot. We are bringing a co-pilot to the team, who's the customer success engineer, who's basically in charge of assisting the salesperson in actually achieving their goals.
Nice.
So by doing this pilot and co-pilot thing and working together, we've actually managed to sort of change the lone wolf approach and actually build a team that is working together and basically aligned on the same objectives.
Perfect. No, that sounds great. Daniel, what practical advice would you give customer success leaders who are either thinking about applying this, optimization approach, or are struggling with this approach?
So I think one of the main things is actually focusing on what's in it for me. And by what's in it for me, we're focusing about everybody in the process, right? The customer, what's in it for the customer, what's in it for the salesperson, what's in it for the customer success engineer, and what's in it for the company, right? The way to focus on this is actually identify and understand the motivation of each one of those roles, right? And be able to align with it. Understand the business goals of the customers and prospects, understand the objectives and compensation of the salespeople, and of course, understand what the company wants to achieve on the long run. And in order to achieve that, I think the most important parts are defining and measuring KPIs and metrics. For each company, it's different. Each company has its own KPIs, but for us, for example, it's adoption, it's ARR, it's churn.
Okay.
Also tracking the opportunities, understanding which opportunities are actually requiring an additional resource. How are we doing with each one of the opportunities? What can we do in order to remove roadblocks as well?
Sure.
And the opportunities can be for new business or expansion.
Okay.
Very important to be proactive in actually measuring and understanding what your customers think. So basically implementing NPS surveys and the ability to actually send them out and get the responses and measure them and act upon them, right? And of course, last but not least, but the most common one is the CSAT. If they're reaching out to us, if they're talking to us, to make sure that they're happy with the responses that they're getting.
Perfect. I'm sure you are getting a lot of success, following this approach. But at the same time, I also believe that you would have your fair share of challenges in applying an adoption of this, non-traditional approach, as you say in your words. So tell us about how did you lead that change among key stakeholders, right? We talked about sales, then there's account management, and then the third, stakeholder is customer success. And if you can give a message to our customer success practitioners that what role they can play to ensure successful adoption of an approach like this.
So I think one of the main challenges we were facing was related to the fact that it's an untraditional approach, right? We basically took a very traditional sales approach where you have your sales engineers and you have your technical account managers and you have your people that are selling and the people who are expanding, and they're trying to do what they know how to do. And basically we broke it down. So we needed to understand how we propose it. And one of the main key features that we did is basically, again, focusing on what's in it for them. We've basically managed to identify a couple of salespeople that were willing to sort of do a pilot and try something new.
Okay.
And we've brought this approach with them and with their opportunities. And we had quite a lot of success with it. We had much bigger deals that were closed. We had a much smaller churn rate. The deals that were closed had a much stronger relationship. So the account managers that were getting this deal then after the sales executive were also able to have a really good relationship with the stakeholders, as well as gain additional adoption, higher adoption, and then get the expansion much quicker.
Okay.
And basically also meet their KPIs and their goals. And once the other sales, once other people in the sales organization saw that actually those sales executives are seeing success, it's reflected in their compensation because they're basically closing bigger deals. They're doing it quicker. They have a better close rate, as well as the account managers who saw that they're getting a much more mature relationship with better engagement.
Mhm.
they were actually asking us to assign as many customer success engineers as possible to different accounts. So there was actually a fight going on of who should get those customer success engineers and how soon can they be allocated to the different accounts.
Oh, that's amazing. So you were able to create that win-win for everyone, right? The sales executives saw a win in that approach, and so did the customer engineers. So kudos to you for, taking all that untraditional approach, working through the challenges, making sure everyone, buys into that and sees the value. And at the end of the day, we all work towards driving customer success. So, thank you, Daniel, for sharing key nuggets today. I myself learned about the optimization piece. The best part was the co-pilot and pilot analogy. And at the end, what's in it for them? Like what's in it for every key stakeholders. So thank you once again, Daniel, for joining us. Again, to our viewers, thank you for your time. We will make sure that we continue to bring you these kind of episodes where we have customer success leaders like Daniel share practical tips and tangible takeaways for you to learn. Thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Customer Success Convos. That's it for this week's episode. Join us again next time to learn more about customer success tips and takeaways from industry leaders.